Hello, folks. You're probably used to hearing my next guest call the games and do the halftime interviews for Fox Soccer Channel. I'm happy to welcome to the Straight Red Card our guest today, Mark Rogondino. Mark, thank you for being here.
Anytime where I get an opportunity to step on a platform and talk soccer, as most commentators go, there's no shortage of verbiage to use, so happy to be with you guys.
Absolutely. Now, I did want to start out, of course, by congratulating you. I know that you have a recent birth of a baby girl. How's that going?
It's definitely life-changing, but it is all good. Her name is Avery. She's about 3 weeks old. And she'll either be playing for the U.S. Women's National Team in about 16, 17 years, or she'll be on the LPGA Tour.
Manager Julie Foudy, I'm sure by then, right?
Yeah, exactly, Julie Foudy. Maybe we might hand it over to Brandi Chastain or something like that by that point.
Maybe so, you're right. But I always loved Julie's insight, so I had to throw her in there. But, I wanted to start where it hurts most, Mark, for all of us, because... And maybe it shouldn't hurt that much, but yesterday we watched the U.S. versus Brazil match. But was it me, or did the U.S. team seem to be driving on a cylinder or two less than normal yesterday?
I would agree with you there. I mean, the one thing you would have to point out when saying that would be, how much are you playing for right there? It's an international friendly, just a short time after you went to the World Cup, so it's not like it's points counting toward qualification, or maybe it could help you out if you beat Brazil into the FIFA World Rankings. But I would say the one thing that stuck out to me that was, I would call, disappointing was the fact that a very young Brazil team with a lot of their up and coming talent, which by the way looks fantastic.
It does.
Just how good they were cohesively as a group of youngsters compared to our team that had some players that were both veteran players and, some of our marquee players,
right.
Landon, Donovan, Carlos Bocanegra. You had Tim Howard in goal in the first half. And, you would expect that even though the talent level for Brazil is so high, I think you would just hope that our veteran players would be able to come in and tactically, control the environment in their brand new home stadium, if you will, there at the New Meadowlands, and just be able to set the tempo of the match and show the younger kids for Brazil, hey, even though you're Brazil and we're the U.S., we're still going to dictate how this match is going to go. But
right.
That was not the case at all.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I'm not going to say, a lot of people said, well, we looked a little uninspired, which may be frustrating in the light of all the fans that are now on TV and fans that pack the stadium. I guess I expected, and a lot of people expected, the opposite performance, and in many ways expected a team to continue that charge towards winning more and more fans over, because that's still an important component. Isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's going to be on a macro scale as well, because, the run to try and make soccer a bigger sport for everyone across the board in the U.S. is going to be something like, something that you and I have to battle for still quite some time. And I don't even know that, maybe in our lifetime that we're going to see it become as big as the goal eventually is, because if you step outside of North America, how huge it is, in Europe, South America, Mexico, Central America, pretty much everywhere else in the world, how big this game is compared to what it is here in the U.S. I think probably, 10 years ago, I would have been maybe a little naive and said, I think that we can get there within my lifetime. But now, having been in the last 10 years involved in the game as, a former collegiate player, and then as an opportunity to call games, both national team games and MLS games and WPS games, I think the reality is that it's still a slow growth, but it is headed in the right direction.
Yeah, it really is. And a lot of people say, well, and maybe these are sort of the new fans, well, soccer will never be as big as American football, but it doesn't really need to be. It doesn't need to be as big as baseball. It doesn't need to be as big as football. What it needs to be is big enough to sustain itself and to continue to build and grow the kind of players we need for the future. And I think a lot of people, I think they for some reason, they seem to think we need to be that big. Do you think we do?
No, I would agree with you. I don't think we need to be that big. I just think that we need to. I grew up in Southern California, so an example I would use would be, when you talk about something like extreme sports. If you looked at extreme sports 10 years ago, that was a complete niche sport. But now you have, I think they just had the 16th anniversary of the X Games. Snowboarders like Shawn are household names now. Yep. So you're getting smaller sports that are becoming more mainstream. Mm-hmm. And I think that only bodes well for soccer because soccer is already ahead of all those kind of sports.
Right.
And, it's a collective effort for all of us. And if we can continue the growth, I mean, one of the things I talk about is calling the women's professional soccer game of the week on Fox Soccer Channel is, people are always asking me, how's that league doing? How are they going to survive? And if you talk to people and say, well, hopefully they can survive because then that only means a league like MLS is going to be doing that much better. I mean, if WPS is surviving and doing well, that bodes well for other leagues around it that are bigger and stronger. And then that even, trickles into probably talking about the national team picture and talking about U.S. player development. So it's all intertwined. It's, it's a big, big web of support that we need from, all sorts of different aspects of the soccer world.
Right, absolutely. And maybe getting back to the USA-Brazil game, maybe one of the things that was more, I don't know, I hate using the word disappointing, but one of the things is that a lot of these players, whether you're talking about Jozy or Bedoya or Feilhaber or even Landon Donovan, some of these guys are not so much fighting for spots, they're looking for another team, or they're looking for somebody who might be interested and willing to spend the money. And I think maybe they might have, in some cases, defeated the purpose last night.
I think it doesn't ring any truer than for the first name you mentioned, Jozy Altidore, on that statement. Jozy was hailed as, a couple of years ago when he was coming out of New York before he left to go overseas, he was hailed as, our next biggest export. And he was, as a kid that everybody was talking about.
Right. But
going to the World Cup, not scoring any goals, bouncing around a couple of teams for the last couple of years throughout Europe. I think it's really fallen off, and I don't think there's any doubt that there is that talent and there is that ability inside Jozy, but for some reason or another, it just hasn't been able to come to the surface as much as me, a U.S. soccer fan and supporter of players coming out of the U.S. would like to see. I mean, I wanted him to be a big-time goal scorer going into this tournament. I wanted him to have his kind of breakout tournament like we had Landon Donovan have back in 2002, and that just did not happen.
Right. Of course, I mean, honestly, Jozy didn't get a lot of support at Hull, but at the same time, you would have liked to have seen him squeak a few in, maybe a few more there, and also do the same at the World Cup. But, on the same front, did that performance last night tell you anything about whether Bob Bradley is staying or going, and should he stay or should he go, in your opinion?
Scott, that is the question of the month right now, and maybe the question of the year now that we're through the 2010 World Cup.
Right.
In my opinion, I would actually personally like to see Bob stay, and my reason for that would be I think that he's done a good job with the team. If you look at the overall depth of his work since he took over, getting out of the group stage, the unbelievable performance at the Confederations Cup, winning some good games along the course of the years. And who's going to come in and replace him that is going to be that big of an impact that's going to really jumpstart the program? Because I think if you just bring in another, say a parallel move, then you're really just starting over. You're taking all of that work that we've done for the last 4+ years, and you're just saying, all right, that was a good try, but let's go back kind of to square one and get it all going again and see if we can build up the mojo again for 2014.
Yeah.
And I think that he deserves the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to if they start playing some matches and in the next year things do not go well, then I think you take a look at it. But based on his merit of work and what he's done to this point, I don't think he deserves to be replaced.
I have to agree that I think Bob Bradley's done a fantastic job, and I think his last number of years at the U.S. national team have been a real a slow, gradual progression, step by step. I mean, Bob's a real film guy. He is a lot smarter than people give him credit for. He is a student of the game.